feel like you're nothing, but you wanna be something. Yeah. Well, all you really need is hope. I just want you to trust me if you wanna be something.
That's right. Let's go. Yeah, when you're feeling down and you're out, like you got nothing but doubt, you're alone in the crowd, just trying to figure it out. All of this cloud and this money got you feeling left out. Listen up to me now, every word that's out of my mouth. Wake up, it's me, you're gonna follow your dreams, or are you just gonna be another cog in the scene? You feel the hope in this beat, yeah, the hope that you need to proceed and be exactly what you want it to be. I feel right and I'm proud, hype and I'm loud, I'ma shout all about how I feel in the now. Ain't nobody ever gonna try to change me, till I'm dead pushing up daisies. I'm alone in the crowd, I won't feel down. I got hope right now, and I know I'll be found. I don't really care just what all other haters gotta say. I know everything I do is gonna make them fade away.
And when you feel like you're nothing, but you wanna be something. Yeah. Well, all you really need is hope. I just want you to trust me if you wanna be something.
Yeah.
Then all you really need is hope.
Take a look in the mirror, are you seeing some fear? You hear the voice in your ear, can you start to see clear? Are the bad thoughts near? Or can you be where your feet are, yeah, when you stand right here and say no? I'm never gonna give up, I'm never gonna slow. The one that doesn't give up, never loses to a foe. The one that could show to myself I could go all the way to the top, can't stop me. I'm a soldier, always closer till it's over. Older, but I'm bolder, moving forward, motor, never slower. Good to know ya, don't go make me drop my shoulder. You need to believe you can achieve everything that you dream. Everything that you need is in the air that you breathe. It's in the mind that you feed. It's in the time that you bleed. Every second of life is another blessing to me.
And when you feel like you're nothing but
Okay. Hello. How's everyone doing? Tonight we are going to be finishing up Javier Perdomo. I have not heard him reach out to me, which is sad because I really do want to talk to this guy. Like I said, I do want to do a deep dive on him. I might check out his channel again in the future, look for other stuff. We're not going to finish this video, just to be very blunt. We're 49 minutes in, and we got a long way to go. Like, we're going to do Doctrine of God. There's baptism, justification, damnation, and universalism. Morals, ecclesial chaos, infallible list of essentials, tu quoque, and I think that's it. Same variants. Oh, conclusion. So yeah, so we're not going to finish this video, but we'll watch another portion today, and maybe sometime in the future, if he doesn't take this down, or he doesn't ask me, or he doesn't block me, I will come back to this sometime in the future. This was a good week. This was fun. I'm glad that we covered Javier. And I know that I drew in some audience I don't normally draw in, and they did not like my cussing. I don't plan on stopping cussing. I like cussing. I like it. Believe it or not, people who cuss are reported to have a higher IQ. That's true. For some reason, people who enjoy cussing have a higher IQ. So it's not a sign of lower intelligence like people used to say back in the day. I don't know if that's relevant to anything, but that's my little fun factoid for the day. Let's start. Oh, next week we're going to be doing more of the Techno Puritans. They have a video that's pro fapping. And so we're going to have fun with that video. Yeah. Let's get into this.
Authorities outside of Scripture, right? Like the Mormons are just exemplary of for the ecclesialist side, that it would lead them to heterodox conclusions about the Trinity. I mean, this is just part and parcel of the ecclesialist side of the ecclesial.
No, that's a complete lie. The reason why the Mormons have a different understanding of the Trinity, because remember, it is the Catholic Church that defined the Trinity. So he's flipping the facts. All the councils that defined the Trinity, every single one was a Catholic council. There's not a single council in that whole group that was not Catholic. So he's just. I'll tell you what. I'll I'll grab that book. I guess if I don't have it here, I'll grab it in a second. I'm gonna let him talk while I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna pull a Hassan.
Umbrella, and really, it's just a feature of the chaos of their system. Now, ecclesialist friends watching this at home, right? Despite of me being a little bit more rhetorically forceful in this episode, because the person we're responding to is rhetorically forceful, does it make you upset that I threw Mormons in as a part of the ecclesialist umbrella? Does it make you, or does it feel unfair to try to impugn your church based upon the heresy, the clear heresy of the Mormons, which were snuck into your umbrella? That's exactly how we feel when you do the exact same thing with Arians, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, or with modalists and Unitarians, like Oneness Pentecostals.
I'm feeling a little queasy tonight.
So
I don't
please,
know why.
let's not resort to the cheap tricks
How's
here.
my sound? How's
right?
his
You could
sound?
try to
Let me
broaden
know.
the Protestant umbrella and sneak as many people as you
It's a
want in
little
there.
lighter on mine
Or we
today.
could try, because sometimes
I
the
don't know,
Protestant
this thing
umbrella will
ran out
get
of power.
the most uncharitable definition of like just anyone that's not Roman Catholic, right?
Okay. I don't know
Let's
what he
just
just
not
said. We'll go
resort to
back
cheap
and
tricks.
re-listen to it. Okay. So, for real, he needs to read this. This is volume. What is it? Volume 5, 6, 7. Volume 14. This is volume 14. There's 13 volumes before this one. Let's not worry about that. This is volume 14. This is all the ecumenical councils. Okay, this is all the ones that everyone agrees on, both Orthodox and Catholic. This is them. Go read this. You, Javier, before you talk any more smack, read this, please, because what you're saying is nonsensical. If you've read this. And then for my audience, if you don't want to read all of that, this is a summary of all the ecumenical councils, all of them. This is Denzinger. This does not have everything. I want to be clear, even though it says it has everything, it does not. This is even shorter than that one, but it covers everything. So I recommend getting this guy if you just want to, you just want a complete summary, compendium, whatever. It's really good. But anyway, this is Denzinger. This is the one that almost everybody recommends in the Catholic community when I would go to the Catholic chat rooms and stuff. Chat rooms, is that what they're called? I don't know. Catholic rooms. I don't know. This is what they would all recommend. But this one is the one that I prefer. But I don't expect too many people to read this. But I do want Javier to read this. If he doesn't have it in his collection already, he might. But I don't think he does. Not by what he's saying, unless he's just being totally dishonest.
So, you know what? Let's put the Mormons to the side here, right? Surely, parents to make you responding to is rhetorically forceful. For feature at least a scripturalist project, and their authorities outside of Scripture.
Well, and we can live a mortal life, just like Jesus Christ, and they're true. Three separate entities, there's still three separate personages.
Good for the churches of the ecclesialist umbrella. In fact, it really seems like a feature of the ecclesialist project.
No. Again, this is just lies. All the dogma and all the theology that he himself believes in comes out of the church. It's all defined by the church. All of it. Even Luther. Sorry, even Luther had a church. Sorry. So no, this is just lies. This is just a misunderstanding of history. It's really pathetic.
And their authorities outside of Scripture, right? Like the Mormons are just exemplary of for the ecclesialist side, that it would lead them to heterodox.
And again, the reason why the Mormons have a different theology is because they have a different book and they have different belief systems. It has nothing to do with them being a church. It has to do with the fact that their church is using a different book and a different interpretive lens. Actually, I just covered this in the book review I just did on John Barton's A History of the Bible, which should be coming out by Wednesday. I already have the script written. I just have to film it.
Conclusions
I
about
think I
the
still need to do some tweaking on it, though.
Trinity. I mean, this is just part and parcel of the ecclesialist side.
You don't have I don't like these calling them ecclesialists, but let's just use this word for a second. You don't have the Trinity without ecclesialist. So you might want to get off your high horse.
Of the ecclesialist umbrella, and really, it's just a feature of the chaos of their system. Now, ecclesialist friends,
And again, he's not doing anything interesting here. He's just simply flipping the accusation around and pointing it back to people who are churched. This is really stupid.
watching this at home, right? Despite of me being a little bit more rhetorically forceful in this episode, because the person we're responding to is rhetorically forceful, does it make you upset?
No, John Barton. Crap, that'd be awesome. No, Joe Heschmeyer is not rhetorically forceful. I would say Trent Horn actually uses some rhetoric and force behind his arguments. You know who doesn't is Jimmy Akin, and he attacked Jimmy Akin earlier. Jimmy Akin is so Tai Chi, so Aikido. You know, like you come in and you just like, he just flips you over. So jiu-jitsu about it. But anyway.
That I threw Mormons in as a part of the ecclesialist umbrella? Does it make you, or does it feel unfair?
No, it just shows that you're a jackass. It doesn't matter. Again, you're trying to just do everything that you think Joe Heschmeyer did. And again, two wrongs don't make a right. You're just showing yourself to be manipulative, dishonest, unscrupulous. So you're not doing yourself any favors here. You're not winning any converts, and you're not making a point. Even though you take 3 hours to make a point, you're not doing anything of quality. You're just creating schism, and you're creating scandal where there isn't any. You should have responded to Joe Heschmeyer's accusations. Instead, you're on a shit channel like mine, and I'm the one responding to you, not Joe Heschmeyer.
To try to impugn your church based upon the heresy, the clear heresy of the Mormons, which were snuck into your umbrella? That's exactly how we feel when you do the
fuck off.
exact same thing with Arians, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, or with modalists and Unitarians, like Oneness Pentecostal.
Oneness Pentecostals. Oneness Pentecostals, I would put in with Protestants. I still would, and that's because I've read several things about Pentecostals, because there's more than one branch of Pentecostalism, and Pentecostalism originated on the Azusa Street revival, and that the charismatic Pentecostals are Protestant in almost every way. Like they believe in all the big tent stuff. They believe in all, well, they're evangelical in every way, I should say. They're very American Protestant, and they, whether it's crap, why am I getting a cold? Yeah, it doesn't. Go read a history of Pentecostalism. Go read a brief history of Pentecostalism from Oxford Press, or read an introductory to Pentecostalism by one of the Pentecostal leaders currently, like one of the big ones. I know I have the book on my wish list. I don't know if I have it in my library because I have so many stupid books. Darn it.
And so, please, let's not resort to the cheap tricks here, right? You could try to broaden the product.
You're the one resorting to cheap tricks. And again, I've already given you my definition of Protestantism. You want to come on my channel and we can argue about what the correct definition of Protestantism? I'm down. But do it. Show up.
Protestant umbrella and sneak as many people as you want in there. Or we could try, because sometimes the Protestant umbrella will get the most uncharitable definition of like just anyone that's not Roman Catholic, right? Well, let's just not resort to cheap tricks. So
It's not a cheap trick. And like I said, let's use useful charts definition. Let's use the same definition that Bart Ehrman uses. Let's use the same definition that Kip Davis uses. Same definition that Dan McKellen uses. I'm okay with the scholarly and academic definition. Are you?
you know what? Let's put the Mormons to the side here. Right? Surely, once we put the Mormons to the side, the ecclesialist churches will agree on their doctrine of God, right? I mean, after all, they're all Trinitarians.
This is so cheap. Am I doing it at faster speed? Okay. I might even go faster because he's just taking
How
so
substantial could their disagreement be?
First, let's understand what we even mean by essence and energy. So essence or nature.
So the essence and energies distinction, while not anti-Catholic, is really hard to maintain if you're a Thomist. But here's the trick. Not all Catholics, not all practicing Catholics are Thomists. And there's no requirement to be a Thomist to be a Catholic. And then someone will say, well, what about in the Catechism? Well, the Catechism isn't dogma. Yes, it contains dogma, but the Catechism is not dogma. And the Catechism is subject to change. It's giving answers to bishops. So that way bishops have a place to look up what the theological consensus is in the Catholic Church, more specifically in the Western Catholic Church, because you're allowed to have the essence and energies distinction in the Eastern Rite and still be considered Catholic. So, just to be very clear, this is a theological divide that's a division between different monastic theological sects. You have Thomists, you have Jesuits, you have whatever else. There's a lot of them. And each one is subject to their master. So whoever they submit to philosophically, that's whose philosophy they're going to be, or theology they're going to be spreading and defending and arguing about. But as long as you're a Catholic in good standing and you submit to the Pope and you follow through on your sacraments, confession, communion, going to church every Sunday, you're kind of fine. Unless you're outward living a life of mortal sin, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to be condemned. So, yeah, he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about.
Usia, which are all synonymous with one another, answers the questions of what are they that are doing these things. So for example, I am making this video, right? You're asking, what are you that is making this video? And I will say, well, I am a human person because I have human nature. I have the human essence.
You could be AI.
Energies answers the question of what is it that they are doing. So God.
I didn't finish on the energies.
So God is
and essence and energy distinction. In Orthodoxy, it is hard to understand and hard to explain. There's really only one writing on it that's substantial. I mean, you could read where, but really you're going to have to read your Holy Hezekiah stuff. You're just going to have to read, I think it's Palmas, Gregory Palmas, to really understand that. But here's a problem for you, Mr. Javier. You know who else likes Gregory Palmas? Some dude, I don't know if you've heard of him, named Gavin Ortlund. Which means one day soon, Gavin Ortlund might deny divine simplicity and switch over to the essence and energies distinction. What are you going to do then, buddy? You're going to call Gavin a heretic? Like you're doing now for the Catholics?
The world. Well, what is it that God is doing? God is creating the world. So the act of creating the world is an operation. It's an energy. And energies and operations are pretty much synonymous. They're used synonymously. What even is this doctrine all about? What is essence energy distinction? The most basic way I will explain it to you is that it is a real metaphysical distinction between the essence of God and the energies of God.
So that is not a good explanation. That is just repeating the term as the definition. Essence and energies is so the argument for divine simplicity is that God can't have parts because God is never changing. The problem is that in the Bible itself, if you read it plain and simply, to quote some people called Protestants, although you say they don't exist, and I'm saying they don't exist for the sake of this argument, but in actuality, Protestants have argued for a plain and simple reading. So when you do a plain and simple reading of the text, God does change his mind, and God does have a will, and there is wisdom, and there is these other abstracts. So how does that work? How can God not be in the universe, but always constantly present in the universe? Well, that's what the energies and essence distinction is. So even though it's all God, God in essence, not a created being, not in this reality. God in energies, the sun radiating on the earth, the energy of God, the breath of God, the spirit of God, the word of God is in this world and in this universe and in this reality and interacting and doing things. That's the energy and the essence and energy distinction. And the metaphor it uses is the sun. Now, is energy and essence distinction compatible with divine simplicity? Some say yes, some say no. Are there other models of understanding God? Yes, there is. Have I got there in my readings? No, I haven't, because I'm in 450 AD, and that's, I think, 1250 AD? I don't know when Augustine, I think it's Augustine. I don't know when he writes his book on it. I have it. I have the collection, but I haven't gotten there yet.
Divine simplicity means that the attributes that we predicate of God, such as omnipotence, omniscience, etc., are in God.
And again, Peter Diamond is a heretic in a set of a contest, and of course he's going to say things that are counter to what Catholics actually believe. If you were using Trent Horn, this would make more sense. But you're using Peter Diamond, and you're going to use Peter Diamond to show a conflict with what Catholics teach. And also, the energy and essence distinction, again, is not a problem unless you're a Thomist.
Really identical with the divine essence and with one another. So when we say, for example, that God is omnipotent...
Because again, the Catechism is not a rule book. It's a guidebook for bishops to show what the current consensus is in the Catholic Church and by theologians, not just Catholic theologians, but Western theologians in general.
Or all-powerful, we don't mean that in God there is God and there is God's power that is really distinct from him. No, God's power is not something that God has in addition to being God. Rather, God and the divine power are one thing, namely the divine essence. God is power. Likewise, when we say that God is omniscient or all-knowing...
And Peter Diamond is a terrible example of almost anything. Even Trent Horn couldn't help putting a dig on him in two different videos that he just did. One with, not on his channel, one with a comedian, a Catholic comedian, in which they were just ripping off between two ferns. It wasn't good. It wasn't funny. There was only like one good joke in the whole thing. And then the other one was on Pints with Aquinas, where he did like a 2-hour, 3-hour interview. And I'm like, oh my goodness, why is he doing such a long interview?
Knowing, we don't mean that there is God and that there is omniscience that is really distinct from him. No, omniscience is not something that God has in addition to being God. Rather, God and omniscience are one thing, namely...
That is not the essence energies distinction. I just explained it the way that most Orthodox would explain it. It's the sun. It's the radiance of God energizing and animating all life.
The divine essence. To deny this is to hold that God is composite or composed of parts, and that is heretical, as we will see. Divine simplicity also means that in God, being all-powerful is not really distinct from knowing all things. They are both that one thing that is God, the divine essence, and the same applies to the other divine attributes.
Aristotle discovered the distinction between act and potency, or actuality and potentiality.
And by the way, Thomistic Institute is really great. You don't have to be a Thomist to watch them. They're really good. Most of the stuff that I presented against might be the wrong word, but against Majesty of Reason was stuff presented on their channel that I learned from like 4 years of watching their material.
The things around us in nature are not only what they actually are, but also what they can be. It is easy to see the distinction. A pot of water on the stove is actually cold, and potentially hot. But once it is on a hot burner for some time,
This also gets into, which is not being acknowledged here, potentialities and actualities, which again, based on my philosophy of ultimate reality, look at as abstracts versus what you might call realizations, which is different than simple potentiality, because potentiality is something that doesn't actually exist yet. Now, the argument for potentialities is the line in the Bible that God knew ye before ye were created. Sometimes translated before you were born.
the potentiality to be hot becomes actualized. And when the water is actually hot, it is potentially cold. Aristotle realized that all things in nature are a blend of act and potency, like the water. When we think of change as the actualization of potential, a question confronts us. Why does the potentiality of things become actual? After all, potentiality does not realize itself on its own. Pondering this question led Aristotle to the conclusion that there must be some ultimate source of change. The ultimate source of change must be completely actual and not have any potentiality in it. But it is responsible for the realization of potentiality in everything else. The ultimate source of change he called the unmoved mover, or God.
So my argument is just simply that the way that you guys conceive of, and I can read Phaser here in his introduction to scholastics. He says, for example, if we turn to divisions of act and actuality, this is not long.
I don't know why everybody goes to Fraser. I really don't. I don't get it.
First table to be made is between pure act and mixed act. Actus purus, or act utterly unmixed with any potentiality, is the core of all scholastic philosophy.
But everybody seems to love Fraser for some reason. He wrote, he's writing a reinterpretation. So, you can just go back and read the original stuff. What I do, I read the original stuff. That's what I like doing.
Philosophy's conception of God. Everything else is in act and in some way mixed with potent.
If I'm not mistaken, J. Dyer really hates the scholastics. And I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if the scholastics are considered heretics. I've read stuff to say that they are, but I'm not sure that's coming from a Catholic or a Protestant perspective. If it's from a Protestant perspective, If it's from a Catholic perspective and it's an official ruling, it's an official ruling. I just don't know.
Potency. And then I'm going to skip down to the last point. I'm not trying to lie. It's not being deceptive. It's just getting to the bottom of the paragraph where he says, an angel, for example, is a relatively pure act in that it is without matter. And then he says, however, its essence is still in potency relative to its existence, right? So this is something.
Darn it. Hold on. I pushed the side button on a thing and it... Give me a second. We'll get back to it.
Mixed with potency. And then I'm going to skip down to the last point. I'm not trying to lie. It's not being deceptive. It's just getting to the bottom. He says, an angel, for example, is a relatively pure act in that it is without matter. And then he says, however, its essence is still in potency relative to its existence, right? So this is something that Thomists believe is a feature of all created things, right? This is not the case. So he says this is absolutely not pure.
Again, I'm a Catholic and I'm not a Thomist. So, and not all Catholics are Thomists. You're not required to be a Thomist to be a Catholic.
Act. Only God is absolutely pure act, right? And this is specifically about this notion of potentialities in God. And I don't know if you're familiar with the modal collapse issue, but this has been a huge debate in Thomism, or people critiquing Thomism for a long time. And we can talk about
necessity versus contingency.
No, modal collapse in that if God's action of creating is synonymous with his essence, then God has eternally created the created order. So this is the modal collapse argument. So the point is that...
Well, there is an argument that God is always creating, that the creation never stops, that our existence is his creation, that as in it's the act of creation still happening, which gets into problems with, well, what happened to on the seventh day he rested. So it gets into biblical inerrancy and biblical literalism problems.
The effects will be just as eternal as the action. And I know that Thomas will say, no, there's we interpose God's will there, where God didn't will to create all of these other things. But it's missing the point. The point is that all potentialities, right? God has, for example, knowledge of the worlds that he didn't create, right? Like God has knowledge of a possible world where there's no Thomas Aquinas, or a possible world where there's no, I don't know.
And this is the kind of talk that we're not really doing anymore. specifically because we'd get into issues when debating atheists and anti-theists. This is where the best of all possible worlds arguments come up, and if God can exist in one world, that means God exists because it's an ultimate being, and there's only one ultimate being, and the ultimate being exists in even one possible reality, then he exists for all possible realities because that's his reality, whatever. But that doesn't take into the fact that God's actually outside of time and outside of reality because God is going to exist. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He comes before and after, so he exists before everything exists, and he will exist after everything ends. So there are other problems with this argument that most people don't talk about, and I don't think really. Most of this 3-hour video, and we're already 56 minutes in, is distraction. Most of this video is just distraction. Him saying, look at this. These two people disagree. So therefore, Protestantism isn't wrong because Protestantism disagrees and we're okay. If you're okay, then we're okay. This is such low tier, low fruit, non-productive, non-point making. Oh. Well, like I said, it's giving me content, so yay.
China, okay. Did God create those worlds? No, he didn't create them. He created this world. Okay, so what that means then is that there are potentialities within God. God has divine ideas of all of the worlds that he didn't create, and yet he didn't create them. So that would then, on this definition, make God a mixed being and not pure act. Palamos and Palimism is a different bird from what you have in Western medieval Roman Catholicism.
I think this is even older because I think this is when, because these two guys haven't been friends in a very long time. I think this is when Michael Lofton was still Orthodox, if I'm not mistaken. So this is really old. And Michael Lofton eventually came to the Catholic point of view. Anyway.
So the overall issue is just simply how we approach the question of unity and multiplicity or diversity in God himself.
Sure.
And it relates to different
issues. If I'm
not
mistaken, this is before Jay Dyer started showing his true colors. That's why I don't pretend. I don't pretend to be someone that I'm not, because I don't need a whole bunch of people to come to my channel and then like 3 months later when I say something, honest as myself, then disappear from my channel. I'm just going to be myself. So that way, if you're subscribing to me, this is what you're getting. I am who I am. I'm not pretending. I'm not acting. This is just me.
Not just to the relationship between the nature of God and the persons, because we see the nature-person distinction is very important.
No persona.
It also is a question of God's relationship to the world. Does he relate in a purely causal way where the only thing that we experience in life are created effects of God? Or is there a real immanent presence of God from the Orthodox perspective via the energy?
We will cite an Eastern Orthodox heretic who thinks that the Christian dogma we've just considered, that to say that each person is the divine essence in reality, even though each person is distinct from the other persons, is wrong.
I'm so tired of Peter Diamond. Could you please stop bringing him on this fucking thing? Oh, so boring. He's so irrelevant. I'm more relevant than Peter Diamond. Do you understand? Like, my channel, even though Peter Diamond has more subscribers, that's all I'm talking about. How about relevancy? Peter Diamond is so irrelevant to the Catholic conversation. But putting him on here is not only insulting, it's boring. Stop bringing him in because he contradicts everything. So it doesn't matter what he says. He's just taking the contradictory point of view. He's irrelevant to the conversation.
Wrong. The heretic states.
And in the Roman Catholic tradition, you have so much confusion of persons.
I think it's still Jay Dyer. Why is he labeling Jay Dyer Peter Diamond? I think that's still Jay Dyer.
And energies and person and essence. Schuon doesn't understand that in our theology, the Father is not the same thing as God's essence.
He says.
Is this the Schuon? Is he talking about Schuon Head? Oh, if Jay Dyer made a Schuon Head reference, I like him a little bit more now. By the way, Jay Dyer is not irrelevant to the conversation. I specifically saying Peter Diamond is irrelevant to the conversation. Jay Dyer is very relevant. People don't like him, but he's very relevant. The things that he says is actually reasonable and actually matters. Someone just needs to rein him in.
Is that the Father is not the same thing as God's essence. Well, it's fascinating that St. Athanasius teaches exactly the opposite. St. Athanasius, quote, "But if God is simple, as indeed he is, then quite clearly when we say God and name the Father..."
Again, the church fathers disagree with each other. This is such low tier.
"We are not naming something around him, but are signifying his very essence, ousia," end quote. As we can see, St. Athanasius teaches exactly
The magisterium, the councils overrule what certain church fathers say. So a church father gets something wrong. That doesn't mean that they're no longer a church father. It doesn't mean they're no longer a saint. It just means they got something wrong, which shows you how unimportant that is.
the opposite of what the Eastern Orthodox heretic does.
Schuon doesn't understand that in our theology, the Father is not the same thing as God's essence.
St. Athanasius teaches exactly the opposite of the heretic because St. Athanasius was a Christian, and the Eastern Orthodox heretic is not.
The Eastern Orthodox are not heretics. They're not.
So you're saying that we should presuppose the God of Eastern Orthodox Christian theism.
Correct.
Because the God of Eastern Orthodox Christian theism has revealed we ought to presuppose him.
No, I'm saying that we should presuppose him precisely because...
By the way, Jay Dyer lost this debate. I think it's one of the few debates that he lost, and I don't know why they never got back together again. I think it's because he had his little downfall, and Trent Horn doesn't want to sully his good name.
The self-revelatory declaration gives an account for the problems of ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology that I keep raising.
Why is it?
Christian
Why
worldview solves those problems?
Why does only Orthodox Christian? So I guess what I'm trying to.
I think the same silliness, is what's going to hurt Michael Lofton. I don't think Michael Lofton ever is going to be invited back on to Catholic Answers. Just to be very blunt about it, and I don't think Michael's going to be able to interact with Jimmy or Trent. It was just too bad because I really like Michael Lofton, but I think he's too much. He's too much Jay Dyer. If that makes any sense. It's too bad because I really like Michael Lofton. I hope he keeps doing well because he's doing good. He's doing good. I don't even know if he's still writing articles for Catholic Answers or EWTN or anything like that.
Unique revelatory character of the Trinity in Orthodox Christianity.
Right, but Protestants and Catholics also believe in the Trinity.
Yeah, but you don't have it because you have heterodox versions of it. They have heterodox Trinitarian theology. I mean, yes, Trent fundamentally misunderstands and doesn't get Trinitarian ideas right precisely because of these points. So he has this gigantic task.
And again, Jay Dyer does not speak for all orthodoxy. And because he speaks so authoritatively, it's gotten him in trouble a few times. That's why I'm just repeating the same things now for yesterday and today. I'm going to have to fast forward this.
I'm trying to smash,
I'm just repeating myself, guys.
Palamos
I'm going to play
together with
Jimmy
SCOTUS
Akin, but if I
with
repeat the
Aquinas,
same
as
thing
if all
again,
those
I'm just
are
going to
somehow
fast
under the
forward to
umbrella
another
of,
clip because
acceptable Catholic theology. Of course, they're not.
This is too excruciating. It really is. It's the same bad point over and over again to make an example that he doesn't even believe is a real example, just so he can make a point that he doesn't. That if we don't like it, then we shouldn't do it to Protestants. This is such lame. It's so lame.
Catholics pretend like they are, right? I mean, Palamos writes whole treatises like calling the Filioque.
Oh, Father Josiah.
But
Okay,
somehow
I'm going to also do Father Josiah.
20th century uniate allowances. Palamos is cool now.
Finally, the video said that Gregory
that
of
History
Palamas
Valley?
was condemned as a heretic in the Western Church, but he's a saint in the Eastern Catholic Church. So isn't that a contradiction? Now, it's true a lot of Western theologians didn't like his school of thought, or Palamism, but the Church never formally condemned him. Pope St. John Paul II even spoke positively of the spirituality based on Palamism in a 1996 address. In that same address, he said this: "How many things we have in common. It is time for Catholics and Orthodox to make an extra effort to understand each other more, recognizing with renewed amazement of fraternity how much the Spirit is working in their respective traditions in view of a new Christian spring. Now, it's true a lot of Western theologians didn't like his school of thought or Palamism, but the Church never formally condemned him. Pope St. John Paul II...
That is not true. Not true.
That is true.
Pope St. Gregory, St. Gregory Palamas was, according to the Apodictic Treatise, an opponent of the Filioque, which he called satanic. He begins his treatise by saying that the papacy and the Latins listen to Satan and teach the doctrines of Satan on the Filioque. Then the Council of Florence meets, 1274. I highly recommend that you get.
This is the problem with being stuck in ancient medieval theology, I should say, or pre-medieval theology in a way. And don't get me wrong, I'm in the same boat as Jay Dyer here. I've only read up to 450 when it comes to Catholic theology. I've read more than that when it comes to heretics. Like I've read a ton of. It is on, right? Okay. I've read a ton of Kierkegaard, and I have a love for Master Eckhart. So I mean, I've read a ton of heretics, but you know, the problem is the theology changes, the ball moves, man. And if you're in Orthodoxy and you're stuck in a certain area, it just becomes a problem because even if the rest of your councils and your synods have moved on, there's still going to be some holdouts, just like the rad trads on the Catholic side. There's going to be some holdouts with the radical traditionalists. That's just rad trad. I don't know what the Orthodox, ultra Orthodox would be called. But yeah, so, I mean, this is such not a good point. I want to hear Jimmy Akin. I want to hear Father Josiah. I think he's going to take the Father Josiah one from the rock and sand speech.
The Crisis in Byzantium book by Papadakis, because it goes into the 1274 affirmation of the Filioque, and then the Palamite synods meet to rebut that, and then you get the Council of Florence. So Trent doesn't even know what he's talking about, that there's a series of councils that deal with the very issue that Trent's trying to defend. And absolutely, anyone who disagrees with the Latin understanding of the Filioque.
This is just saying the same shit that the Protestants say. Yeah. They were anathematized. Yeah, they were excommunicated for disagreeing. And then later when the church was brought back in, and they made peace with the Eastern Orthodox, and they created or reaccepted the Eastern Rite, and they let the saints back in. That means they have to let the differing paradoxal theologies back in. And how do we answer that? We call it mystery.
As a double hypostatic eternal procession is condemned as a heretic. That is the teaching of St. Gregory Palamas in the Apodictic Treatise on the Holy Spirit, which he begins by saying the Latin doctrine is satanic. So we know from St. Gregory Palamas himself that he opposes the Latin doctrine at 1274 at that council. I mean, as it's presented at that council.
Hey, Bob. Please feel free to say anything you want to say. I am getting very annoyed with how exhaustive he's being, Javier's being with his examples of apologists disagreeing. And these aren't even apologists who are on the same side. These are apologists who are in different, they're in different belief systems disagreeing with each other. So he's not even showing. This would be way more interesting if he had, which this does happen, by the way, which if he had Catholics in good standing disagreeing with Catholics in good standing. That happens all the time. That literally, me and Trent have had arguments that went on for days, like in chat. So this is such low tier stuff. Yes, people with different denominations disagree with each other just because they're in a church system or an ecclesial system. Doesn't mean they're going to agree. The Anglican and Lutheran are ecclesial. they're good Protestant traditions. Like, I don't know what this is such crap. This is not good.
as well as the doctrine that's presented in Florence.
And by the way, if he had shortened this up and just used one example of two opposing ones, this would have been more tolerable. If he would have, on another hand, like I said, put Catholics disagreeing with each other as his examples, it would make more sense logically. Either of those would have been more acceptable. But doing what he's doing here, having people who already disagree with each other, makes no sense. It proves nothing. There was a schism. We all know this. This is not, we're arguing over which is the one true faith. He's arguing over, well, there is no true faith, I guess is what he's arguing. Because that's the point that he's making. So if that's not what he's trying to make, which, by the way, that's a completely heretical belief anyway. So unless he's trying to argue that there is no one true faith, he needs to drop this line of, I'm going to destroy ecclesialism. Like, this is so bad. Also, as far as I know, and this makes me even more surprised that Gavin Ortlund would endorse this. Gavin Ortlund doesn't oppose ecclesialism. He wants the church to reunite. He wants there to be a capital P Protestant church. He does. And he wants it to replace the Catholic Church. He wants Protestantism to be labeled as the true Catholic Church. So it doesn't make any sense for Gavin to be endorsing this video outside of the fact that he's butthurt that he has to have his tail between his legs, and that's crap. Like I said, this Gavin Ortlund endorsing this really lowered my opinion of him, because I have been defending him to Catholics, to like big time Catholics. I even endorsed him when it came to the debate between Kip and Bowman and Trent and Gavin. Like I was pro it. Like I was like, yeah, let's do this. So this really lowers my estimation and my trust in the intellectual honesty of Gavin Ortlund by him endorsing such a bad video, such bad faith video.
The Palamite synods are counter synods to your ecumenical councils. So he has to be a heretic and a schismatic. So the Catholic condemnations of anyone who disagrees with those councils condemns him as a schismatic and a heretic.
What is the Filioque controversy, and why? Is often an Orthodox objection to becoming Catholic.
Okay, so we should start.
By the way,
for people who may not understand.
Both Trent and Jimmy have found a way through apologetics to get around the Filioque problem with Orthodoxy, which is that in the Eastern Rite Catholic Church, this is the same answer that I gave for Gregory Palmas. In the Eastern Rite Catholic Church, which is under the Pope, they don't say the Filioque. So the anathema or the damnation of it, of not saying it, is gone. It's clearly gone if people who don't say it are being canonized, and meaning like as in declared to be in heaven. So yeah, it's what Javier is saying is not a good argument. It's just nonsensical. It won't impress anyone who's Catholic. It won't convince anyone who's Catholic. And the length of this video won't do anyone any good. No one's going to watch a 3-hour video except for Protestants who want to say, yeah.
I don't know where the word comes from. Filioque is a Latin term. Filius means son, and que, when it appears on the end of a word, it means and. So filius and que, in this case, becomes filioque, which means and the son. And it comes from a line in the Western version of the Nicene Creed that says the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father, filioque, from the Father and the Son. And this is not found in the Eastern versions of the Creed. It was not originally there when this version of the Nicene Creed was formulated at the First Council of Constantinople back in 381. But later, and it's become a and the Son.
I want to get to Father Josiah.
7. It might have been raised as early as 767. Certainly in the Frankish kingdom.
And I absolutely love Father Josiah. If you want to hear some really good Eastern Orthodox, by the way, he's a former Protestant that became Eastern Orthodox. But if you want to hear some really good comprehensive theology and pastoral care from an Eastern Orthodox priest, I can't recommend Father Josiah enough. Father Josiah is amazing.
Of Charlemagne and following the Filioque was posited. By the time of St. Photius, councils were held in Constantinople condemning it as a heresy, even though so many Orthodox bishops and priests today do not have the courage or the conviction to maintain.
Now, let's go back and listen to what he just said, though. What's going on the Eastern Orthodox side?
Yes, councils were held in Constantinople condemning it as a heresy, even though so many Orthodox bishops and priests today do not have the courage or the conviction to maintain that Filioque is a heresy.
Meaning that priests and bishops in Orthodoxy don't consider the Filioque a heresy anymore. Some still do. Father Josiah still does. But yeah. Yeah, let's move on to baptism. I'm going to start going a little faster just because this is not good. I'm going to answer his accusation and maybe play two. I'll scan it like this and see two guys that I like and just go from there. Okay, let's see. Let's hear what BS he wants to say.
God. But surely they can agree on the ground realities, right? Like baptism, for example. I mean,
we all agree it needs to be done.
Heschmeyer made such a big deal about how different.
Okay, so real quick, here's the argument on baptism. Should baptism be done during the age of consent or at birth? All of us, most are going to say at birth or within the same time as the circumcision, but it's going to be circumcising the heart, meaning the spirit. Okay. Then the question becomes, well, does it have to be through full immersion or not? Because according to the Didache and according to, I don't know, there's something else, it has to be through full immersion. But then a council rules that you can do sprinkling in extreme circumstances. Okay. So in extreme circumstances, it's allowable to do sprinkling, but preferable to do full immersion. Fine. We still haven't got into an argument. Except then through custom and through, I don't know what you want to call it, laziness, it then just becomes practice to do sprinkling. Now we got a problem. Here's what's funny. My Catholic church, the church where I was baptized, well, the church that I attended, I really shouldn't say the one that I was baptized, but the church that I attended, we do communion in both kinds. It's a Roman Catholic church, by the way. It's Novus Ordo. I hate saying Roman Catholic, but I at this point in this conversation, I don't know what else to say. But yeah, so it's a Catholic church, and it's Novus Ordo. And we do communion in both kinds, and we do full immersion for the babies. We do sprinkling for the adults, though. But for the babies, we do full immersion. You know.
Different Protestants have different understandings of the mode of baptism, of some of them, unfortunately, of rebaptism.
Yeah, but we have rulings. You don't. That's his point. His point is that the division continues to grow. And he's going to include Baptists on this, which I'm pretty sure you're going to say, well, they're not really Protestants. Let me ask you this. Are any high church Protestants actually Protestants? Or do you consider Lutherans and Anglicans Protestants? Or are they not? Are Calvinists not Protestants in your definition? Because you just excommunicated Gavin Ortland because he's a Calvinist.
Baptism and this sort of thing.
And and if you excommunicate Baptists, you're also excommunicating Gavin as well, because he's not just an evangelical; he's also a Baptist. Yeah, man. So I mean, you got to watch your argument there. You're shooting the person you're claiming to defend. You know what I mean? That's friendly fire.
Earlier, ecclesialist friends are just lock and step on these issues.
The reality I kept running into in Protestantism was I love the Bible from a young age, and Jesus said, if you love me, you will obey my commandments. And I always took that.
So, okay, well, you know what? They couldn't agree on the specifics of baptism and the Eucharist, despite how big of a deal Joe Heschmeyer made about this for the Protestant umbrella. But what about the...
No, we can. It's necessary to be saved. You have to be baptized. Or you can be baptized through martyrdom, called the baptism of blood. But there's different ways to be baptized, but you have to be baptized.
Question of how man is made right with God, right? Surely justification is essential, right? Do ecclesialists agree on justification?
I really wish you would stop using that term, ecclesialist.
Why don't we
I think
give
it's
them,
even
a
annoying.
charitable
Like I said, an evil little sack of. I love it. I like I said, if I would have known this guy was this scummy, I would have tried to get him on my show a long time ago. Oh. The devil's pulling on your heartstrings, my friend.
head start and kick off our next set of clips with two back-to-back Roman Catholic apologists who are in good standing with the Pope, as far as I know, who are faithful Roman Catholics. Surely
no.
on justification.
No. He's going to go to a heretic. They're not in good. So Jimmy Akin is. Tyler Marshall is no. He's a no. He's a no. He's literally leading a schism against the Pope as we speak. No. Tyler Marshall is not in good standing with the Catholic Church.
On the question of faith and works, surely we can get.
Somehow you will feel guilty if you find yourself in such debates, as if having arguments over theological ideas is sinful. What is driving Mr. Akin is his personal resolution that after all the disagreements Catholics and Protestants have had over the centuries regarding how an individual is justified and attains salvation, he has concluded that although we may disagree about what words to use, the Catholic Church about justification, much like
lawnmower. I have to, as a Christian, fix the lawnmower.
So, again, I don't know. I think it's on justification. This guy right here is leading a schism in the Catholic Church. He's the rad-trad of rad-tradius. He's not a good guy. He was literally telling people not to get vaccinated. Okay, this is not a smart person. This is not a good person. Let's move on. Okay, justification. Let's sum up. Justification. It's really simple. You're baptized. You're saved. You're good. If you have a baptism of the Spirit, which means you want to be Christian, but you get, a car accident on your way to the baptism, you're still saved. You get baptized through martyrdom, baptism of blood, you automatically go to heaven. All martyrs automatically go to heaven. That's it. That's all there is to it. What about staying in good standing? Well, don't commit a mortal sin and you'll be fine. You commit a mortal sin, you got to confess it. Once you confess it, you're good. Okay, let's move on. What do we got? Damnation and universalism. I'm wondering if he's going to call the Pope a universalist just because a lot of the rad-trads and heretics call him a universalist.
It looks like our ecclesialist friends cannot agree on how man is made right with God. But you know what? Maybe we can move past.
Yeah, we can. It's baptism. Again, baptism. We all agree it's necessary. We all agree that's how you're made right with God. That's it. Baptism. How you stay right with God is a different question.
Past those specifics and ask a broader, sort of essential, one might say, sort of question. Is salvation something that most people can hope to achieve, even if we can't agree on exactly quite how we are justified? I mean, what do our ecclesialist friends have to say about that?
In this video, we will be discussing the doctrine of the fewness of the saved, or the
Most people go to hell, but we can hope that everyone is saved. I love Bishop Robert.
Virgins or Rob Bell's. It's pretty much a universalist position that in the cross of Jesus, all people are saved. And the church's job is to announce this good news to the world. Now, one of his colleagues, a fellow Swiss and a friend of his, was Hans Urs von Balthasar, the Catholic theologian. Balthasar took in a good deal of the Barthian spirit, I think reacted against this Augustinian and Thomistic, rather dark view on hell. Balthasar said this: we may reasonably hope that all people will be saved. You see what he's doing is he's pulling back from Barth and Origen and from a complete apokatasis position that we know all people will be saved. No, we don't know that. But we may reasonably hope that all people will be saved. Why? Because of the dramatic thing that God did through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Because of that, we may reasonably hope that all people will be saved. Do we know it? No. Why? Because human freedom...
And
And
this
point
guy
90
is a heretic. Again, we got another heretic. We got Timothy Gordon, another heretic, another schismatic. Now, there's some question on whether or not he's in good standing or not. I don't know. I don't care. I hope everyone who we've called heretics here, I hope they get to heaven. I hope that they change their ways and amend their ways. And if they're just leaning toward heresy or if they've self-anathematized, there's nothing we can do. It's between them and God. I'm not here to judge. If they accept the Pope and they get back and do a good confession, they're good to go. So, I hope they confess their problems, their issues. Let's see what Trent wants to say.
Church has a canonization process to say who is in heaven. It has no similar process to
and people are allowed to disagree, and different theologians do disagree within the Catholic Church. Again, it would have been much better if he just put Bishop Robert Barron, Trent, Jimmy. There's another one who has a completely different view, but all Catholics within good standing. Instead of giving Catholics in bad standing, giving opposite faiths, giving opposing faiths, and it's not a good point. You could have actually gone to different monastics and religious who are in good standing, and have the Augustinians argue with the Thomists, and the Thomists argue with the Jesuits, and the Jesuits argue with the, I don't know. I'm trying to think of another group. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that could have been done here that wasn't done, and really, this is not good. Let's go to the next one. Morals. Okay, let's check this out.
Even if salvation might be doubtful for most of us, or whether most of us are going to make it, or whether, as Pope Francis said recently, that he maybe likes to think or hope that hell is empty.
Again, that's the classic Catholic answer, which is you can hope hell is empty, even though we can't declare it empty because we don't know. We don't know. We honestly don't know. Judas could be in heaven for all we know. We don't know. We don't know. That's the whole point. Also, the hell being empty thing also plays into hell is void, hell is non-being, hell is the second death, the true death, which is all biblical, which is a way of interpreting those things. But again, that's beyond this guy's understanding by his apparent misunderstandings here that don't seem to be real misunderstandings. He just seems to be trying to be annoying.
At least our ecclesialist friends can all agree on the things that'll keep us on the straight and narrow, right? To actually get us there, right? I mean, are they united on morals at the very least?
This is really stupid. He's just simply inverting all the accusations that are put against Protestants and trying to apply them to Catholics, which doesn't make any sense. And then he's calling it all ecclesial, which again doesn't make any sense. These are different church structures that have nothing to do with each other. So he's just trying to point the finger saying, hey, you're doing it to us, we're going to do it to you. That's not what Joe Heschmeyer was doing. He was picking people who are leading popular Protestant apologists and popular Protestant speakers. He's not picking the who knows what, guy who doesn't. No, he's picking the most prominent people. If you don't like that they're labeled as Protestants, that's your problem. That's not his problem. Again, create one single Protestant church and have them have rules. But you can't do that because right now you're suffering through a great schism of your own in woke Protestantism that's happening. Woke Christianity is a real problem for you all. Progressive Christianity is a real problem for you all.
Today's episode, I'm going to focus on the danger of what I call Catholic fundamentalism. Traditionalism turns into fundamentalism. So I'm going to focus on...
I mean, are they united on morals at the very least?
Okay, hold on. Let's see. Moral guidelines, normie. I don't like that Trent is using the term normie because it's not even what normie means. Trent doesn't have a good... Trent's not cool. Trent is the least cool person I've ever heard on anything. Also, him labeling and stealing the term fundamentalist for the rad trads is also a terrible choice. He's doing this apologetically because he has a strategy where he's trying to, since fundamentalists are already considered poor Christians and heretics in most Catholic eyes and Catholic circles and atheistic and secular circles. He's trying to lump them together with the rad trads, with the Tyler Marshalls of the world, so that way he doesn't have to deal with Peter Diamond anymore, and that way he can just like. That's a terrible idea, and the more people he convinces of this is really bad, because fundamentalism has nothing to do with the radical traditionalists. The radical traditionalists are hoping for a new pope one day. You know what I mean? Like it's a different thing. They're trying to have Catholicism without being Catholic, while the fundamentalists, if you want to say fundamentalists aren't Protestant, they're a completely American creation. If you want to say they are Protestant, they're trying to be the most Protestant of all Protestants. That's why there's Reformation Day. And I'm pretty sure that Javier wouldn't deny Reformation Day or deny John Calvin, Martin Luther, his status of founding the Protestant movement, the Reformation movement. If he wants to call them all reformers, that's fine. But I mean, he's not doing that. Constantly updating is just constantly reforming. But yeah, we are constantly developing.
Today's episode, I'm going to focus on the danger of what I call Catholic fundamentalism. Traditionalism turns into fundamentalism when those good yet optional traditions...
And again, I don't like the way he's defining these terms. I don't like the way he's using these terms. I think this is a terrible strategic mistake. And if I didn't cuss so much, there's a chance that Trent Horn would hear this, but because I cuss all the time, I don't think he's ever going to hear this message. But this is a terrible strategic mistake that he's doing. So out of a freaking 3-hour and 30-minute video, roughly, this guy, Javier, has made one good point and is not even relevant to his case.
On everyone. What you end up with is an online magisterium that makes demands upon the faithful that the real magisterium does not require. And they often do this by finding anything.
Yeah. And Trent hates Peter Diamond. I'm pretty sure Trent hates me too, but for different reasons.
A previous council or pope or saint.
But the moral principles or the liturgical principles for the death penalty in 3,000 years of moral reasoning about it.
I feel so bad for the fall of Timothy Gordon. He had so much potential, and he let Michael Lofton, when Michael Lofton wasn't on the straight and narrow, and he let Jay Dyer is Jay Dyer? No, not Jay. Tyler Marshall just lead him down the wrong path, man. It's so sad. And also, everybody was kind of angry about the COVID stuff anyway in lockdown, so it wasn't good.
And one is a necessary justification
for
it, right? The principle of
burden, my genuine burden.
Sure.
Why should I accept your church's magisterium as infallible when it so manifestly reverses a supposedly irreformable teaching?
But see, that's kind of the point. That's what we're talking about. We develop. We change. The opinions change. This whole early portion of this video was saying that, well, no, these things don't change, so therefore we're still under anathema. No, you're not. They change. Things change. Things change. If you can't accept that, you can't accept reality. Let's jump to the next one.
So this is the part where I would put like a 5-hour compilation of all of the different ecclesialists fighting and arguing and debating about.
Golly, why? Who are you making this video for? Who? Like the owl ask. Who? No Catholic is going to sit for 3 hours or 5 hours or 7 hours of being insulted and lied to and denigrated. None. The only thing that you're doing is making fellow Protestants feel good about themselves. That's it. This is not apologetics. This is not outreach. This is not even counter apologetics. It's dishonest. It's deceptive. It's foolish. It's inane. It's inept. It's tedious. It's exhausting. I don't get why you're doing this, man. Like I said, this is evil. This is someone got into your heart some little demon, some little temptation. Maybe it's just your own insecurities got into your heart and made you do this. This is not good. I cuss. I'm friends with LGBTQ people. I do outreach to Wiccans and Satanists and Luciferians, and I try to get them to see that God is true and God is real. If you don't understand how that works, most of those people are doing it ironically. They don't believe these things literally, but there are people who do. Trying to get them to see that God forgives them and that they can. It's a whole thing. It's a whole big project, and what you're doing is nonsensical schism making, so you can point fingers at the other side. I'm a sinner, dude. I make mistakes all the time. I go to confession all the time. Like I'm working my way. You know what I mean? To do the James White expression. I'm a Catholic working my way through salvation. But the truth is, I'm already saved. I'm already forgiven by God. I love God, and God loves me, and God loves you too. But you're not acting in a godly way. I don't mean the cussing and the hanging out with strippers and prostitutes and tax collectors and going to prisons and hanging out with murderers and clothing them and giving them food. I don't mean that. Like some guy named Jesus. I mean, as in, like, you're confusing the exterior presentation of what Christianity is with the interior importance of what Christianity is. I can say as many quote unquote bad words or foul language as I want. It doesn't change the fact that I'm actually helping people and that I'm actually caring about people. That I've willingly sacrificed my memberships, my subscriber count for honesty. That I've quit my job that paid tons and tons of money to take care of my ailing father. The fact that I've helped victims of certain crimes. None of that changes when I say a bad word. But when you're calling yourself a Christian and you're creating schism, you're being deceptive, you're not willing to take correction, you're purposely misleading people out of the faith, well, now you're doing actual evil. No matter how kind or soft or gentle you are. Gavin isn't doing. I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about Gavin Ortlund doing evil. Gavin Ortlund is an amazing apologist. He's an amazing man. He's a good Christian. I hope he's not a hypocrite. I hope we don't find out some bad skeletons about him in the future, because I love that man. I'm talking about you, Javier. What you're doing is wrong. And what you're doing for 3 hours and 30-some minutes is wrong. You will be held accountable for this. I'm going to be held accountable for my own fucking sins. I'm not pretending I'm not, but you're going to be held accountable for what you're doing right now. You're literally doing whataboutism. Okay, it's a logical fallacy. And then you're creating signs of division and scandal where there is none in actuality. Everybody knows the Sedevacantists do not agree with the Catholics. Everybody knows, because they believe that the Pope stopped being the Pope. There's no more Pope. That's just Protestantism, man. Everybody knows that the Anglicans and the Lutherans don't agree. Everybody knows that the Orthodox and the Catholics don't agree on certain things. Everybody knows all of this. And then you get some of it wrong by mislabeling what happened with Chalcedon, because some of these schisms have actually already healed over. So you're retrying to tear off a scab, which causing schism is considered one of the greatest sins in the New Testament. So I'm not even talking to you about academia, about literalism, about any of the things that I normally criticize a Protestant for. I'm talking to you as a human being. What you're doing is wrong. You're not healing anything. You're not reaching out to anyone. You're not helping a Catholic understand their faith better. Okay? You're not helping a Protestant practice their faith better. You're not helping them conform to the will of Christ. you're just being hateful, and you're just doing it with a nice cadence and a soft voice because you felt that Joe Heschmeyer wronged you. I am not wronged by you. There's nothing that you did that hurts me. But your sin, if it's a sin, and I can't declare it a sin because I'm not God, is before God for all time. So if you have any doubts about what you're saying, I would recommend confessing. I would recommend asking for God's forgiveness. Now, again, I can't judge you. So maybe it's not a sin. Maybe you're right. But I got 44 years of experience and a ton of books that I've read that say you're wrong. And I don't just mean Catholic books. So, and not to mention all the YouTube stuff I've watched over the years. So, creating schism is a sin. Creating scandal is a sin. It is. Lying, being deceptive is a sin. Holding hate in your heart is a sin. Not forgiving others is a sin. Seeking vengeance or justice on your own is a sin, for vengeance is only the Lord's. You are doing things that in the Catholic world are called venial sins for the most part. Some of them are major, some of them are grave sins, but are venial sins for the most part. So you're fine. You'd be washed away with, a little bit of holy water, an honest contrition, whatever. But the major sins, well, in your world, with your rules, that shows you were never a true Christian to begin with. These sins that you're doing show that you were never a true Christian. You were never truly saved, because if you were truly saved, you wouldn't be acting on these sins, because there's no minor and major sin for you. There's no grave and venial sin for you. There's no mortal and non-mortal sin for you. Or wounding sin, mortal and wounding sin. There's just sin. So even if you're doing a little sin, you're condemning yourself to hell. Because again, assuming your theology, you don't believe that God sends anyone to hell. You believe that people send themselves to hell. Or maybe you believe in the final judgment fully and you believe that God does send people to hell. And you're a Calvinist. Okay? So that means that if you were predestined for hell, there's nothing you can do to save yourself. Oops. So what you're doing right now is just increasing the punishments, because in Calvinism, you're still punished for what you did. So you're increasing the amount of torture you will be under in hell. The amount of guilt, the amount of shame, the amount of awareness. Again, I don't believe these things. I believe in confession. I believe in God. I believe in love. I believe in mercy. I believe in charity. So, I have the hope that God will forgive me for my sins. And I have the hope that one day I will stop sinning. Truly and contrite, I would love to never sin again and live a very long life. Unfortunately, people sin. I don't have any qualms about that. I understand who I am as a person. I know myself. That's why I don't pretend not to cuss on this channel. That's why I don't pretend to be some soft, sweet guy on this channel. Because I'm not. I drink, I smoke, I fight, I work out, I argue, I'm stubborn. I love beautiful women. I do. No qualms, dude. I am a sinner. Straight up. But I also believe in forgiveness, and I also believe in redemption, and I also believe in submission to God and to authority. If you're in schism and you have all the information and you know better, you are no longer in invisible ignorance, which means you no longer have that shield of exception. Based on what you've shown in this 3-hour video, you don't have that shield of exception. You do know better, you do know the facts, and yet you still won't accept them. You are rejecting orthodoxy, which is the original church. You're rejecting Catholicism, which is part of the original church, where the original true church subsists. You're rejecting all development And you're rejecting all hierarchy, which the Bible itself has. There are deacons, there are elders, there are priests and deaconesses on top of that. And you're rejecting all of that because you don't like it, because you think you know better than God.
The papacy, because, right, obviously, no one except the Roman Catholics, except the Bishop of Rome, the Pope.
That's not true. The Orthodox also accept the Bishop of Rome, but they believe that he is the first among equals. We had this discussion the other day. Let's move forward. Let's play
As the infallible vicar of Christ, who has not just a primacy of honor, but has immediate jurisdiction. Right?
Again, he's just being wishy-washy and deceptive on his understanding.
Direct jurisdiction over everybody, over the whole world.
Again, go back to, I believe it's I forget which council it is. It's one of the first 3 ones that are in that book.
And so we could have a heyday, right, putting that together. But I thought I'd save us time. I think this video, I think what we've demonstrated here today is that, man, I mean, the ecclesialists are just in a state of chaos.
No, they're not. And you trying to be ironic is neither funny nor good.
Right, and even with me saving us time on the papacy, it's interesting that throughout a lot of the videos I played, we heard them appeal to a lot of the things that they hold in common, right? So for some of them, a lot of common.
So we all submit to the same councils and to the same church fathers. All of us. I got news for you. So do you.
Heritage, right, that they hold between different saints and doctors of the church and different things prior to the Great Schism. Some that they don't hold in common, right? There it is, right? Yet another thing that they, you think would be essential, who's canonized and who isn't. Obviously, then hold.
He has complete misunderstanding. You're allowed to have your own saints on a local level. You're allowed to have your own saints on a diocese, on a parish level, on a priest level, on a diocese level, on a conference level or C level, and then the whole church. So yeah. So again, he just has complete misunderstanding. He should have brought Trent a little bit closer, a little bit better.
Hold that in common. But even when they appeal to a lot of the tradition, even what they consider to be capital T tradition on things like the filioque, the essence energies distinction.
Again, that has been answered, and it has been, it has begun to heal over. One day it will be solved. Not anytime soon, but one day.
Or whether it's something like universalism or...
No, universalism is a heresy. But we can hope that everyone gets to heaven. And we can hope that hell is empty. But universalism declaring that it is empty and that everyone gets to heaven is a sin, is a heresy. No, sin is the wrong word. Heresy is the right word.
Those people will go to hell. It seems like they cannot quite get there. They can't quite agree.
No, we all agree. We all agree. We're just trying to get each other to join each other's sides. For Mr. Jackass here, Orthodoxy wants all of Catholicism to become Orthodox again. Catholicism wants all of Orthodoxy to become Catholic again. Same thing with Chalcedonians, same thing with Coptic. We all want unity once more. We want the patriarchate to be strong. We all want it. We want unity. Schism is a great sin.
And so really, I think this is just a show of just how chaotic ecclesialism is.
No, it's literally structured and ordered. You're changing the word and you're using the word ecclesial to use how Catholics use the word Protestant. And that trick is not funny nor entertaining, and it's definitely not entertaining for 3 hours. It's cute and interesting if you do it in a short clip, not 3 hours.
Right, and how not having the scriptures to hold you down, right, really sends you.
We do have the scriptures to hold us down. We honor the scriptures. The scriptures are what we go to. There's literally a debate between James White and a priest where James White goes, "Was there anything in your dogma that's not in the Bible?" And we're like, "No, it's all in the Bible. It matches."
You adrift, right? And
also, the way you interpret the Bible is also based on our interpretation of the Bible, because you don't get to these dogmas and theologies on its own naturally. You would learn that if you actually knew anything about biblical scholarship.
And honestly, when we compare this ecclesialist chaos to my church that I've actually been recently received into, right, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, when we
you're a hypocrite, buddy. That's an ecclesial church.
compare just all this chaos. They don't even know how you're justified. They can't agree on whether hell is real, whether anybody's there.
And there is actual reconciliation and ecumenical talks between the Lutherans and the Catholics, and some Lutherans have already submitted to the Pope, and there's now a Lutheran. I think there's a Lutheran rite. It might be the Anglican rite I'm thinking of. I'm very tired. We're already an hour and 30 into this, so I could be getting some little details wrong at this point, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm not going to go back and re-edit this one into a better video because this is not good.
Whether everyone's going to make it out, whether they're the Protestants and Roman Catholics are actually one on justification or not.
He literally just acknowledged what I just said. So that, again, that means that he knows better, and he's being deceptive, and he's being evil.
I can already hear you saying, I mentioned this all the way at the beginning. It seems like it's so long now. It's been several hours. But if you've watched Joe Heschmeyer's 2 videos that I'm responding to, I can hear you saying, and probably it's in the comments already for people that didn't make it all the way here. But Javier, Joe addresses all of this in his part 2 video responding to Gavin Ortland's YouTube short. So I'm going to briefly tackle his main points here as well. And so when Gavin pointed out to Joe that Roman Catholics also don't have a list of infallible essentials, right? Because now we've moved away for a split second from just comparing an idea, a little bit about Joe laying out his main thesis in that second video for how he would like to respond.
No one's even watching at this point.
To really of the first 2/3 of this video or 3/4 of this video. So let's see that now.
I'm grateful to Gavin for replying. I do think, though, he's missed the mark in 3 important ways. Number one, his entire response is committing this popular logical fallacy I've been alluding to, what's called the tu quoque fallacy. I see it a lot online, and I want to address it head on. Second, I don't think he's recognizing the way this poses a problem for Protestantism in some unique ways that it wouldn't for Catholicism or Orthodoxy or Coptic Christianity.
I just had to interject there for a second. I think we can tell, right, by the last 2.5 or 3 hours of this video, how that's just patently false, right?
No, it's 100% correct. It's 100% true. And I've been saying that throughout this video. And again, not because I watched Joe Heschmeyer's video, although I did watch it. But okay. He's never going to watch. He's not going to watch this. But whatever. Let's pretend he does. There's no one even in the audience right now. I'm just talking to myself. Nobody cares about this, dude. You're really you're hurting my ratings now. Pull it together. Pull it together. I can't.
So anyway, sorry. Moving on.
And third,
let's do it again. We can do it.
I don't think he's recognizing the way this poses a problem for Protestantism in some unique ways that it wouldn't for Catholicism or Orthodoxy or Coptic Christianity.
This video, how that's just patently false,
okay,
right?
So I was a Taoist for 15 years, okay? Before I ever became a Catholic, I was a Taoist. When I came into Christianity, I was a liberation and liberal, though I didn't consider myself liberal Catholic. I was considered myself a liberation Catholic. That I did. But I was deep into liberation Catholicism. Then when I returned to the church and at 33, after losing my ability to walk and getting my legs back after saying a prayer, and it's a whole thing. Once I was able to run again, I went back to the church and I did my confirmation. And at the time I was discerning between three or four different denominations, Greek Eastern Orthodox, Catholicism and Baptist. There was one other one. I don't remember what the other one was. And there was a little bit there where I was discerning Judaism, by the way. It was reading the church fathers and reading this kind of stuff that turned me more traditional and disciplined me and brought me into the tradition, into the Orthodox faith, specifically the practice of a thing called the Liturgy of the Hours, which you might know is the Book of Common Prayer, whatever, or maybe even Divine Liturgy if you used to be Eastern Orthodox. But considering that you said you just got into a church, it sounds to me more like you're in the cage stage of your faith, which means you're fighting off things that you really shouldn't be fighting. And I did this after I had success with my channel and I was getting, I don't know, 50, 60,000 views with my reading of the Quran. And I started actively taking down heretics, like I said, the Vigilant Christian Martyr. There's a few of them that I took after. I then got haughty, and I went after Brian Halsworth because he denied the sins that were done during the Inquisition, during the Reconquista and the Inquisition, mostly during the Reconquista. My family was exiled from Spain and ended up in San Luis Potosí. From there, we ended up in Laredo. It's a whole thing. But my family's Jewish in origin. We're Sephardic. And we betrayed our own people for safety. We betrayed our own family. There's literally a names list of who lived, who died, who went to prison, who didn't. And when Spain was inviting all the Jewish people back, all the Sephardic people back, and Jerusalem also had the same kind of thing. We could go back. My name was there, and the history was there, and I went through, and my family name, I guess I should say, was there, and I went through the lineage, and there was a whole ugly story to it. And so I decided to go after Brian Halsworth the way that you're going after Joe Heschmeyer. And it was a mistake. It cost me viewers. It cost me a reputation with the larger YouTube Catholic community. Luckily, I ended up on debate channels and